Out of the box, the S2400 is reassuringly weighty. It's on the large size for a desktop drum machine, measuring 46 x 31 x 13 centimeters. It is nice to see some space on a front panel during a time when machines are shrinking ever smaller. With a steel enclosure, aluminium panel mounted knobs, smart aluminium side panels, wood is available as an extra, and heavy-duty mixing desk style faders, the overall first impression is one of very high standards. Like the SP1200 before it, everything revolves around 8 channels. There are 8 MPC-like velocity-sensitive pads, 8 60mm faders, and 8 dual rotary pots. Scattered around are buttons to change fader modes and access features like sampling, the sequencer, disc operations, etc. On the right is a 128x64 pixel OLED display which is navigated using a large clickable data entry encoder or the number pads below it, which double up as context-sensitive shortcut buttons for various functions. In true sampler tradition, the S2400 boots up with empty memory for you to fill. The internal 128 MB flash drive holds a few factory kits and samples to get you started. Alternatively, you could fill in South Dakota card and load files from there. Only WAV files are supported and must be 26, 44.1, or 48 kHz and 16,24, or 32-bit. Or you can dive straight in and start sampling. 64 MB of sample RAM is available, which equates to 11 meters 39s of mono 48 kHz recording or 21 meters 30s of mono 26 kHz recording. Stereo recording is also available and will take up twice the space. The 26 kHz option is significant because it uses hardware anti-aliasing filters, which play a part in the classic SP1200 sonic signature. Samples recorded at 26 kHz are 12-bit, and samples recorded at 48 kHz are 16-bit. Sampling can happen from several sources, including the 2 stereo phono inputs or the 2 stereo quarter-inch line inputs. Only the first pair of each has the 26 kHz anti-aliasing filter, leaving the last pair locked to 48 kHz. Sampling is either manually started or triggered at a certain signal threshold. After sampling, the sample analysis screen will confirm that your sample is okay or not, if it's clipped or empty for some reason. Then you are presented with a sample editor where you can trim, normalize and save, either to the current project folder or elsewhere on your South Dakota card. You can also assign the sample to a track at the same time. There are 4 banks of 8 tracks available per project. A single sample can be assigned to each track, meaning each project can contain up to 32 samples, 24 if you're using live loops, more on that later. Each track is assigned to a channel, of which there are 8. Channels are like voices on a synthesizer. A channel can play a single mono or stereo sample at any given time. So despite having 32 tracks, you can only play 8 of them at once. The SP1200 had the same 8-channel limit, and it's a shame that Isla instruments couldn't bump this number up on the S2400, as it does feel a bit modest by modern standards. Once a sample is assigned to a track, it can be triggered by the pad associated with that track. The pads feel great. Velocity sensitivity is excellent, although can be disabled if required, and one nice touch is that they can be assigned different colors, thanks to a small transparent window in each pad, with a multicolor LED beneath it. The faders above each pad do a variety of tasks depending on which fader mode is active. The buttons down the left side of the faders choose the mode. With no fader mode active, the faders adjust the level of the playback for that track. These values are only for performance and are not written into the sequencer data like the other fader modes. It allows you to perform level changes whilst a pattern plays back. Level mode might sound like it's doing the same thing, but it sets a level that does get written into the sequence when you record. As such, you can program volume variations into a pattern using level mode, and then adjust the overall volume using the default mixer mode. Pitch mode unsurprisingly allows you to set the pitch of the sample. There are several options to choose from which alter the way the faders quantize pitch, including 2 modes that precisely emulate the SP1200. New modes include chromatic, major/minor scales, and a fine mode. The total potential pitch range is 40 semitones, 20 in either direction. There is a setting called Audio Engine, which governs how the pitch shifting sounds. In classic mode, the now legendary ringing, aliasing, can be heard when transposing a sound away from its natural pitch. For those that prefer cleaner sound, there's a hi-fi mode which is blissfully clear of aliasing. Envelope mode allows you access to the 3 internal envelopes. Again, here we find a classic mode that uses the exact 8-bit aliased volume envelope of the SP1200. That envelope came with some less desirable zipper artifacts when using short release times, so there's a hi-fi mode here too. If you're in classic mode, you have 3 envelopes, the classic one for volume and 2 additional envelopes for pitch and filter. If you choose not to use the 8-bit envelope, you are left with the 2 hi-fi envelopes, the first of which gets assigned to amplitude control. Loop/slice mode is where you can trim, loop, normalize or slice your sample. The faders will edit sample start for each of the 8 pads in the current bank, and the rotary knob will take care of the endpoint. Each channel has an A and B button just below the rotary pots. These perform varying tasks like opening the settings page for that fader mode. In loop/slice mode, hitting the A button will open up the waveform editor where you can zoom in and out, snap to zero crossings, normalize and reverse slices. Each of the fader modes I've described, level, pitch, envelope and loop/slice, can function in a simultaneous multi-mode. Multi-mode allows the 8 pads to hold different values for the current track. So, in level multi-mode, you can set 8 different volumes and perform with those, recording them into the pattern if needed. Similarly, 8 different pitches, envelopes and slices can also be set. The multi-mode slice will be of particular interest to anyone making hip-hop, jungle or any other genre that relies heavily on slicing up audio, because it allows you to set multiple start and end points, and loops for a single sample. No need to copy and paste samples and waste valuable RAM. You can combine these multi-modes if desired by enabling multi-mode sync. When enabled, faders modes remain active even when you switch modes. So you can have 8 pads, each with different level, pitch, envelope, slice, loop and filter values. Speaking of which, the S2400 is blessed with both analog and digital filters. The analog filters you may see referred to in marketing are part of the circuitry inherited from the SP1200 design. Sequencing. After all this sampling and looping comes the fun of sequencing patterns and songs. Each project can hold 100 patterns up to 99 bars in length, and each pattern can be a different time signature. The sequencer runs at 96 ppqn.